All right, guys, welcome. Really happy to have you here. My name is Liam, and welcome to my channel here. So, yeah, how do we best start this? Let me just tell you about I what I wanted to do and what has led me to actually sitting down here, preparing the setup, setting up the camera, setting up this this mat that I'm on and the space behind me, as well as prepare my journal and the tea. And it's quite of a long story. Let's see how far fetched it'll be. And I'm also really aware of the fact that your time is valuable, right? And your attention is valuable because it's all that you have and all that you get to control and use. So by you already clicking here, it shows that you saw something on this thumbnail and on this title that, yeah, has led you to believe that there might be something of value for you here. Which, as I'm speaking right now, since I haven't recorded the whole episode yet, I'm not fully sure what that's gonna be. And also since I didn't script anything, and I only prepared one broad topic that I would like to touch upon and talk about. I have no idea what's gonna come up. However, my intention for these next couple of minutes is to make it direct and punchy and give you value back on your time. So, without further ado, what's coming up for me in the moment is just that even that is really much influenced by the overall social media landscape, right? And the quote unquote right way of actually creating impact and creating value for people, right? And retaining attention and hooking people in and all that stuff. And it's essentially the notion that you have to capitalize on, or you have to get to the point, right? And you have to really provide people with value. So it seems to be that we're living in this value economy, right? Especially online, things that are being sold, is essentially value, right? Whether it's informational, educational, or just entertaining. In a sense, everything that we get, right? Everything that we consume it because it gives us some sort of value. So, since I'm new to this, I'm not sure to what extent your attention is being hooked right now. But anyways, I'm rambling on. I I do feel that yeah, um I'm able to to provide value. Anyway, so I was just scrolling on Instagram earlier, and usually I don't do this. I did a lot in the past, but now I'm really conscious and aware of the fact that scrolling doesn't serve me anything, right? Consuming content doesn't serve me anything. If I consume content, I mainly do it consciously, and I usually don't consume short form content because the value you get is not that high, I would say. It's good nuggets, right? It's good insights and good stuff, but it's actually not usable, and it's more distraction, right? I mean, the pieces of content can be good themselves, right? And they can be helpful for people and they can solve certain problems. But if you don't, if the problems that are being talked about in those short form videos are your current bottleneck, right? On the current limitations of wherever you'd like to go, and there's no real point in actually consuming that, right? Like it doesn't serve you in achieving your goals. So let me start with that. So what I found, what I reflected on yesterday is that the two main ways to actually create anything are made up of two different parts, right? Or there's two components to creating anything. one, it's the intention. Number two is alignment. Or said differently, it's knowing what you want and then how to get there. Or it's having clarity on the thing and then actually creating it, right? So it's knowing the direction and then it's also going in that direction, right? And going, it's knowing the path and then going along the path. So these are the two main things that are needed for creating anything. And if you see that, okay, I know my path is this way, and I'm creating or I'm consuming content, short form content on Instagram or TikTok, um, which is helpful, but is actually not serving me in me getting there and me walking this path, then it's in a sense a distraction, right? It's not a full alignment. It doesn't really fully get you there. What I am sensing in myself, and this could also be, I mean, perceived as insane imposter or pipe dreams and all that stuff, but for me, it's literally a visceral feeling. Or at least I have really accustomed myself to the idea, right? To this perception, to this vision that I would like to create meaningful impact and live my purpose and to make the most out of my life, right? And what I've been thinking always, when it comes to making the most out of my life is to know my purpose, right? To know my direction, where I'm going. Because if I know which direction I'm heading towards, this automatically solves like 90% of the problems, right? Because the overall direction I'm heading towards is actually aligned and is actually conducive to where I'd like to go, right? Because no amount of action or no amount, like nothing else matters almost if if the direction you're going in is false, right? Or is unaligned. It's one of the key core things that would need to be in place in order for you to get to some desired destination. On the other hand, you can argue that even if your destination is wrong or you have no idea where you're going, you'll still make some learnings along the way, and then you're then able to adjust accordingly. So this is actually an argument for creating and for taking action without having clarity. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm sure you'd agree that if you have clarity upfront, you don't have to, you can avoid a lot of pitfalls and can say no to a lot of things that actually aren't conducive to leading you to your desired destination. So what I want to talk about essentially is that I spent the majority of my personal growth journey actually gaining clarity on my purpose and on my path. So almost 6 years ago, I had this realization, this awakening, this yeah shift in perspective and perception that the way that I've been living life so far isn't just isn't fulfilling to me, and it's not enough, right? I felt like I was living beneath my potential when it came to almost all areas in my life. The only thing that I really enjoyed or was good at it was actually gaming and also connecting with my friends at the time, right? And the thing there was that mainly happened through parties and alcohol. So even that, you can say it wasn't really the healthiest sort of expression of friendships. And this frustration, which of course stemmed from a lack of self-esteem and self-worth, resulted in heavy drinking and unhealthy thinking patterns and behavior patterns, and just left me with a deep void, a strong longing for something else, and then actually, caused me to try to fill that void with external inputs, right? External stimulations such as parties, such as gaming, such as Netflix, such as fast food, such as sex. Actually got into weed also a bit. All desperate attempts to actually fix what I wasn't able to cultivate within, or what I was seeking from the outside. And I then thought that what would really solve all my problems would be knowing my purpose and would be knowing my why. So I spent a lot of years, around 5.5 now, to actually gain clarity in my path, my purpose, and conceptualize structure and create visions and ideas and yeah, and outcomes and dreams, right? Desires for myself. Um, and what that has led me towards is essentially now working in the field, quote unquote, of raising consciousness, right? Collectively and systemically. To me personally, there's no greater meaning, right? So there's nothing more meaningful than raising the consciousness of individuals and the collective, right? I mean, and this could be an individual interpretation and perception of me, right? But I feel like universally, this is the fundamental mechanism that's driving reality, right? It's the evolution of consciousness. And I mean, of course, I mean, yeah. So even that is to be taken with a big grain of salt, right? I haven't had any direct experiences of, let's say, God consciousness or awakenings, like spiritual awakenings, or any psychedelic insights or trips that have shown me that evolution is all evolution or is mainly an evolution in consciousness, or that consciousness is all there is. But when it comes to my personal subjective understanding of reality and the content I've been consuming and the content that's been resonating the most by people who have done their work, which sounds almost bad because it implies that I haven't done my work, which is probably also true to a degree. I myself need to do way more inquiry and contemplation and gain direct access or experience of the facts I'm stating, right? Such as everything is consciousness, or all evolution is simply an evolution in consciousness. Um, However, while I am going to be focusing more on that, I want to highlight here that there's no greater meaning for me than that. You can also say that, let's say, the hierarchy of needs by Abraham Maslow, on the highest level of the pyramid, you actually have self-actualization and you have self-transcendence, which is even higher above that. And you can see that the lower needs, right, of Maslow, they're all catered and focused on survival, right? You have shelter, you have food, water, air, you have family, social connections, self-esteem, and those kinds of things. And then only further above, you actually have the more, yeah, self-mastery type needs that can only be accessed or actually, yeah, be felt, um, yeah, be felt as an inspiration once the lower needs are actually in place. So this itself also proves that, or would support the fact that evolution is an evolution consciousness, right? Because once your lower levels are your lower needs are met, you then have the free mental and energetic capacity to focus on higher ambitions, right? To proactively expand your consciousness, right? And even getting your survival in place. Even that is expanding your consciousness, right? Because now the more your survival is guaranteed, the more you're able to expand your circle of concern from yourself onto other people, right? Which is also where, let's say, the theories of egocentrism to ethnocentrism to world centrism to cosmocentrism relate with, right? Egocentrism meaning that all people care about is themselves, right? Which is essentially, or especially the case for children growing up. Then we have ethnocentrism, which is the most prominent worldview, essentially, that's prevalent and prominent in society nowadays, which is essentially defining or identifying yourself with a certain ethnicity, right? Whether that's your race, your gender, the country you're born in, your religion, your family, social circles, sport club, and all that stuff. And then only having love or concern for that specific group, right? Um, um, and the more, let's say, if your survival is fully met, right, you are safe, then there's no reason for you to not care about the survival of others too. I like to think about that as you being a glass of water that's full, right? With an internal, I don't know the English word, internal spring, right? An internal fountain that's a never ending, yeah, that's continuously able to produce a stream of water. And if you have access to that within yourself and you're constantly overflowing, there's nothing that actually gonna hold you back and keep you from then spilling over and spilling into the glasses of other people, right? Because you have an abundance of inner energy that's constantly being um, generated within yourself. And wouldn't you then also want to sort of infect other people with that abundance that you have? And only if your own survival wasn't met, right? Only if you were a half full glass, then you would be only focused on your own survival, right? On what you can get from other people instead of actually giving back to others, which aligns with Christian values also. Sorry, or Jesus, right? Jesus' teachings. Um, I mean, there's many more theories or studies also that show how how all evolution or development is actually one of consciousness. But I mean, yeah, that's beside the topic. What I want to touch on is that for me, literally, self-actualization and also collective actualization are the two things that I'm most passionate about. One being the work on myself, and then being the self-actualization, the inner work, and then having collective actualization as the embodiment of that into external reality. And looking at my astrological chart, if you're familiar with astrology, then you can let me know in the comments. But um, what I'm seeing there, and it's super accurate actually, is that my south node is in Pisces. South node essentially meaning what my past life theme has been, and Pisces is the sign of spirituality. Meaning I was a very spiritually attuned person in my past life. I don't know, being a monk or an ascetic, uh, something like that, right? Reliving in the energetic flowy types, um, yeah, dimensions of life, right? And focusing on those aspects. And now I have my North Node on Virgo, meaning North Node is um, the place I'm going to develop to in this life, and Virgo stands for practicality, um, systemization or systemic integration, pragmatism, and sort of slow embodiment. So you can say for me, this life is all about um, taking this mm, lofty, energetic, spiritual, dreamy type persona and merging into a more practical, embodied, um, more physical, human, almost type version, right? That's focusing more on practical embodiment and deep systemic integration of spirituality or conscious practices into society, culture, and life, right? Or yeah, our reality and stuff. And I feel like that's such a beautiful path to go down on. And the business I'm currently working on, it's called Inuma, and it's essentially exactly that. It's focusing, um, or it is actually it's the intention or the goal is the aim is to create physical studios for spiritual practices. So essentially, like a spiritual gym, or as I like to call it, a consciousness studio. Essentially, a place where you can work on developing your consciousness, right? Similar to how you have gyms every corner to work out your physical body. Our goal is to build something analogous to that, which is to work on your inner self, right? Your inner body, your energetic body, or your consciousness. And we currently do that through breath work and sound bath sessions. We just got started 2 months ago, and the goal is to integrate that into, we really weave that into society. And the struggle that I have been facing the last couple of weeks and months is that I was so up in conjuring up ideas and visions and plans and strategies and sophisticated elevated concepts for how to raise consciousness and all that stuff. But I wasn't raising consciousness, I wasn't helping anyone. Right? You could maybe argue that, yeah, I mean, because I was raising my own consciousness, I was contributing to the collective consciousness, but practically I wasn't really helping people actually physically tangibly. And the reason for that is because I wasn't putting myself out there. I wasn't doing anything at all. I was just in my room, thinking, but I wasn't really executing. I wasn't being practical. I wasn't embodying or bringing, materializing stuff. And this is what's changing now. And this is also sort of the intention behind this video, right? I have no real idea on how to actually embody myself and how to bring myself into the present world, right? Or into the physical world. I'm also learning here. And I'm up for it because I know the alternatives. If I stay stuck in my head, it's going to be a tragic one. For myself, potentially for other people. But I mean, definitely the fact that, like, it's a path that I don't feel comfortable going down on, right? And staying in a very mental and heady state the entire time. Uh, yeah, contemplating, planning, journaling, and thinking the entire time about having, uh, yeah, no real connection to my body and to actual physical reality, which is exactly the thing I'm trying to venture into now, right? Remember the spiritual past life and now the very pragmatic, systemic current life. So yeah, I did actually post, I don't know, I think I've over 200 posts on Instagram. And even there, I feel it's quite difficult for me to actually share what's going on, right? It's like the max video limit is 3 minutes. And I feel like on YouTube or podcast, you just have the ability to speak way more freely, connect with people in a way deeper way. And also the scrolling behavior, let's say on podcast or YouTube, is way more aligned with what I actually try to share, right? I'm not here to just give you a quick dopamine hit. I'm here to systemically change people's perceptions, or at least share myself in a way that feels authentic and exciting to me, right? I'm actually excited to share myself in that way. I feel like Instagram is actually taking away space, like it's going into a small box, and then I'm being suffocated there. And here I have the space, the container, right, to fully talk and share and speak freely. And there's not as much pressure also to get right, to hook people right in, and to have attention retaining captions or scripts and stuff. And I feel like YouTube is more of an energy transmission. Instagram definitely too. Um, but I feel like it's easier for me, at least right now, to focus on YouTube. Um, Although I mean, yes, growth might be a bit slower, but anyways, I guess you get the point. So that being said, talking about taking up space, and also being as yeah, acting as an antidote to the fast pace of society. I'm just gonna take a sip tea here. So what I want to leave you with is, if you see yourself, or if you resonated with things that I was saying, that you're this conscious visionary dreamer type version and you have lofty dreams and aspirations and ambitions and goals and desires, visions for the world and yourself, yet your outer reality is not showing that at all. It probably indicates to the fact that you're living in your head, right? You're living in your visions, but you're not really living in practical reality. Which is fine, right? But if your intention, your desire is to actually create something physical and tangible, there's no way to avoid actually taking physical action. So it comes down to what do you want, right? Do you want to stay in the idealistic mental realm, which there's nothing wrong about that, right? It's totally up to you. However, in my case, I was feeling that I was so sort of exhausting the mental paradigm, and I'm just inspired to create and to actually live this human experience and human life and to go all in. And I feel like behaviors, right, and actions are a highly or like a very strong evidence. Um, yeah, like it's strong evidence for the fact that I actually care about what I do, right? Because it's one thing to be in my room all day and to think about stuff, but then it's a whole other thing to actually go out into the world and actually act and embody the things that I'm saying, right? It takes a whole new level of commitment. And that's inspiring, right? I don't see like I don't really feel there's any like there's no successful person out there successful when it comes to the amount of things they have physically created in the world, whether that's a certain level of impact or abundance for themselves that has skipped the actual doing aspect, right? And also since it's being, doing, having, being is great, right? But in order to have, which is what you want, right? You want to have the impact or the abundance for yourself. The doing is the missing part. And especially for very sensitive spiritual type people, the doing is what's almost being dismissed, right, and being talked down upon. It's all about energy frequency and all that stuff, but which yes is true. But if you are spiritually bypassing yourself into not doing the actual physical labor, which also takes emotional labor, and you get to learn so much about people, about reality, about yourself by actually taking the action steps and embodying what you're actually envisioning. This is how you actually bridge the gap between the being and the having part. That's what I'm feeling at least, and what I'm experiencing also. So yeah, this is what I want to leave with. Probably gonna term this account something like Diary of a Conscious Entrepreneur. I really want to show the world that it's possible to create systemic impact through conscious practices and conscious living, right? And creating a positive sum business or enterprise in the world, and not only doing business to satisfy and gratify your own ego, but actually to have a world centric approach that and encompasses and concerns and has the best intentions for not myself, not just myself, not just specific group, but for humanity itself. So if this sounds interesting to you, feel free to follow along. Would love to connect with you. Drop me a comment, whatever resonates, whatever you feel like is on your heart. Wishing you all your best, wishing you a lot of strength. And if there's one thing to take away from today's video, I would let it be this one. Um, write down on a journal or on a piece of sheet of paper, what is the one thing that if you did it would actually make life so much easier for you. And then once you have that, simply do one little thing, an action step, and execute it, and actually tick it off and check it off. So if I believe in you, you got this. All the love to you, and see you soon.